Is this on? This is a new microphone. Hello? Oh, great. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. I'm Diana Ingram. I'm the executive director here. And I just have to ask, I see a lot of familiar faces, but who has never been in this building before? Well, welcome. Come back. There's all kinds of information on your seats about the fabulous programs going on and what have you. This is the 6th year of Talk of the Hill with Bill Press, a humanities program created for Hill Center by Bill Press. And he has welcomed bishops and artists and authors, nuns. The nun on the bus was here. I mean, you name it, it's hard to compete with. But these free programs are a gift to the community and supported by the Capitol Hill Community Foundation. So please give it up for the Capitol Hill Community Foundation. So I don't know what else I can say about Bill Press. He is a provocateur. He is a raconteur.
Whoa.
He's an author.
Watch out.
He is a diehard Democrat, but he's also a super, super person, and we are so blessed to have these kinds of conversations with the most fascinating people around these days. So welcome, Mayor Bowser. Please take a moment to turn off your mobile devices. The format, as most folks know, is about a half an hour of conversation, and then Bill will open it up to Q&A, and we'll be passing around microphones because we are streaming this on Facebook Live for an audience tonight and later. So welcome. Thank you, Bill. Over to you.
Thanks so much. Yeah. Mayor, welcome.
Thank you, Bill.
Welcome back for your 3rd visit, I think, to the Hill Center, right? So I have a question following up on Diana's. How many people here live in the District of Columbia? All right, Mayor, these are all constituents here, right? Watch out. But what you may not know about this great Hill Center, even though this is your 3rd visit, is you realize you could have lived here. When we first came to Washington, Tony Williams was mayor, and Tony put together a little kitchen cabinet. I was a member of that kitchen cabinet, and they were looking for a place for the mayor's residence.
Right.
And this is just a pile of bricks that was rotting to hell here at 9th and Pennsylvania, and somebody suggested, let's turn this building into the mayor's residence. Tony was sort of interested, and Diane took one look at it and said, hell no. So just think, this could have been...
It's big. It's big for a house. It's big for a house.
Thank you so much
Sure.
for coming over, Mayor.
My pleasure, Bill.
Born
Thanks for
and bred in the District of Columbia, member of the Advisory Neighborhood Commission, where she started out, moving over to the City Council in 2007, and has been our mayor since she was elected in 2014 and took office in 2015, and up for re-election this year. We forget that. Important that we don't. So, Mayor, the other night, Tuesday night, President Trump took 180 minutes to give us his version of the State of the Union. How about in 3 minutes, if you give us your version of the state of the city?
Oh, that's easy. The state of the district is strong and getting even stronger. I talked to a group of people today where I actually said we're safer, stronger, and prouder than I think we were even 3 years ago when I had the privilege of taking the oath of office. I say we're strong because we're growing. Our revenues are growing. The things that we are investing in are paying off in our city. This year, in fact, this quarter, will grow to over 700,000 people, which is good news in a lot of ways because those people pay taxes, they go to our schools, they shop in our shops, they eat at our restaurants, and they are helping us with all of us. People have been here 5 minutes, as I like to say, in 5 generations, like my family, make the types of investment in people that will also make our city strong. I say we're safer because we ended last year with numbers across the city of violent crime and property crimes that are lower than they've been in decades in Washington. And I say we're prouder because everywhere I go, somebody has the stars and bars on a hat, on a scarf, on a t-shirt, on a tattoo. People are happy and proud to be from Washington. Businesses are starting in more in Washington. And I really feel that we have delivered the fresh start that we talked about, where people can be proud of the mayor, of their government, and the direction of the city.
I only wish Donald Trump could have done it so succinctly. But now I must tell you that we've done, this is the 6th year, we've done a lot of programs here at the Hill. And I often get calls from people or emails about, you've got to ask that person about this. Mayor, you win the prize. I have never had so many emails and suggestions about issues to ask you about. So I want to go through a few, and you know how it works. We'll go for about half an hour with conversation with the mayor, and then all of the other issues we don't get to, you are free to raise. Let me start with Amazon. Okay. All right. They want to build their second headquarters somewhere. They've narrowed it from 1,000 down to 20. Washington, D.C. is one of those on the list, as in addition to Northern Virginia and Montgomery County. They're talking about spending $5 billion for a new facility, which might create as many as 50,000 jobs. So let me ask you first, what are our chances and what are you doing about it?
I think our chances are very good. We did start off as one of 238, as it turns out, submissions, cities across the U.S. and Canada submitting to Amazon to attract them to their jurisdiction. It is important. 50,000 jobs is a pipeline for our city. What's very important is that we diversify our economy, and we have been over many years. We are, though, still heavily a government town. I spent a lot of time going around the region, and in fact going around the world, and letting everybody know that we're not the Washington of old that was strictly the federal government. We have created a lot of private sector jobs, and a lot of those private sector jobs are in tech. And the tech development in our city has been quite organic, but we have been focused over the last 3 years over making the ecosystem more attractive to technologists and tech companies. So that's why it's important. That's why we submitted a bid. And I don't know if you saw the little video that we did early on. It got a lot of attention, where I did a little video with Alexa. Everybody knows what Alexa.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. Alexa, where is the world's most interesting company going to go? And the response was obviously DC. So that was the little spot that we did. And my team put together a really outstanding proposal where we advanced 4 sites in the district that are very different, but also check off all of the boxes that the company is looking to meet. Now, you said, and I repeat it, that we were 1 out of 20. We're 3 out of 20 because when you talk about Northern Virginia, the pitch is Washington, D.C. When you talk about North Bethesda, the pitch is Washington, D.C. And when I talk about my 4 sites, the pitch is obviously D.C. So that says a lot about what we've been able to do as a region to attract talent, to be livable and walkable and safe, have improving schools, and be a city where the people enjoy a high quality of life.
So does that mean a joint proposal, as the Washington Post has suggested, that you all 3 get together and say any one of these will do?
Well, we have all supported, and there's been a coalition of business groups that have supported the region. And in a way, you can argue that if Amazon goes to Crystal City, we still benefit. If they go to close-in Maryland, we still benefit. So that's an argument to be made. And I think the regional play really is on all of the things that it would take to make the region function better, no matter where Amazon goes. And I would start with housing. I think if Amazon goes anywhere in the region, that we would have to produce up to 25,000 units of housing in 5 years. And I think if all of the jurisdictions are participating in that, we can do it. And it's not impossible. It sounds like a lot, but even with us, with a 100 million year commitment every year, my term, we've been able to provide gap funding for affordable housing developments. $100 million is double what the prior administration had done, but $100 million, 15, 16, and 17, and we've produced 5,000 units. We know in the next 4 years, we have made our systems more efficient. We would be able, just in DC, to double that to 10,000 units. So if the region got together, it's very possible to produce that number of units around the region in 5 years.
Governor Larry Hogan has put $5 billion on the table. The state of New Jersey has put $7 billion on the table. How about you?
Well, some sites need more than others.
Yeah. All right. Tell Jeff Bezos that. Yeah, right.
He knows.
Let's talk about a problem that is very visible on Capitol Hill, and that is the problem of homelessness. And we have a big homeless shelter in the DC General Hospital. You promised that one of your goals was to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring. Is that working? And what about this plan to close DC General and replace it with 8 different shelters, one in each of the districts?
Sure. If you ever want to do anything that's super hard, that has no real political wins, and you make a lot of people mad, suggest that you're going to build safe, small, humane, affordable housing in all 8 wards. Very, very tough thing to do, but also the right thing to do. In 2014, many people will remember that a child disappeared from our family shelter. You know, DC General. Never meant to house families, and certainly not to house families for a long period of time. And so it was the consensus, and a very strong consensus, because I traveled all 8 boards talking to people about the future of the city, that in a city as prosperous as ours, we could do better by families who were having emergencies. And so I resolved, with a lot of help from very talented people, that we would close DC General, and we would make sure that the solution to DC General didn't fall on one neighborhood, but that the whole city participated in the solution. So we set out a plan to build 8 different sites. I'm very pleased to say that 3 of those sites are underway, and the rest are in design and will deliver. So 3 sites will deliver this year. The 3 sites will deliver next year. We're just going to be starting on the 7th site and the 8th site, and so more too and exist. So we will produce those units of housing, and we will close DC General.
When does DC General close?
We expect that it will close this year, that we will stop taking families this year.
But from the schedule you just gave, that there's a gap between the time it closes and the time the alternate sites are available. What happens?
So let me just be
time?
clear about something, because I get that question a lot. Like, people will say, well, what will happen to the families in DC General right now? And the real answer is they should be out of DC General before the end of the year. DC General is an emergency space where we work with families to get them in more permanent and secure housing. So we will continue to work with the families who are there now. Now, the point that we should all remember, in cities like ours, we will always have people with emergencies and families with emergencies that will need shelter and will need short-term shelter. And we will continue to identify other units in the private market. We have always used hotels when we have had overflow in the winter months, and we will continue to have that type of portfolio.
Do you find that the hotels or the motels will accept the homeless families?
Yes. We pay, so they accept. Yes.
Vacancies, and you pay. So you're not worried about this so-called gap between?
Of course, I worry, but I worry more about having vulnerable families in a building. Sometimes people ask me what keeps me up at night. And when we have facilities where children could be vulnerable, that keeps me up at night.
Let's talk about DC schools if we can.
Sure.
The city, fairly or unfairly, has had a reputation for having some of the schools that DC schools are the highest spending and the poorest performing in the nation. Colbert King, who does the column for the Washington Post, last week had a column where he talked about a study that started at Ballou High School, but then looked across the city. More than 1 out of every 10 students, they found, given a diploma from a DC public high school last year, missed more than half of the school days. What's the story with DC schools, and is there any hope at all that they're getting any better?
They are much improved. And so while we have had a very significant setback in learning about attendance issues and how attendance issues have affected graduation, the report focused on 1 year, but it's probably for many years, where we have looked at the attendance question and the attendance issue. But I will say, and certainly in the time that I've been in office and watched the change in the investment and the commitment of families to DC schools, especially in the early years, our schools are in a much different place than they were 10 years ago. So we will have to continue to focus, first of all, on how we fix the kind of the government side of the problem. And that is making sure that everybody knows what the attendance rules are and are implementing them across every school consistently. And so that is our commitment. But we also have to figure out why kids aren't coming to school, right? That part of it is not the government side of the equation. That's the community and family side of the equation. So our job is to make sure that we have fantastic facilities, which we and you, the taxpayers, have invested in very significantly over the last 10 years, that we have engaging and trained and expert teachers in our classroom, which we do, and we are very proud. Just recently, we were able to reach an agreement after 5 years with the Washington Teachers Union. So we continue to have the best paid teaching staffs anywhere in the region. So we have to do that. The kids have to have an engaging curriculum that excites them and wants them to come to school. We have to remove barriers, like one very significant barrier we removed with providing every child a free pass to ride the bus or train to get to school. And then make sure that once they're engaged, they're loved, and they're challenged. And then we have to really support families who struggle on their end in getting kids to school.
Right. And it used to be, of course, that the schools were part of the Department of Education or something, that they came under the mayor taking charge of the schools under Mayor Fenty, with your support and your help.
Absolutely.
Is that working? And do you have confidence in the new superintendent, Mr. Wilson?
Well, I recruited him heavily and
Right.
appointed him, and I have a lot of confidence in him, and largely
But
because
he's come under some criticism for his financial difficulties with the Oakland school system when he was there.
Well, the financial difficulties in Oakland have to do with the willingness of the taxpayers to fund what the kids need. That's not a situation here. Our taxpayers in Washington are willing to fund what the schools need. And we are very focused. We're working on the DCPS budget right now, for example. And that budget, as I explained, is the city's budget, it's my budget, and it's part of our overall plan for how we move the city forward. But Chancellor Wilson has been a teacher, a middle school principal, a high school principal, a deputy superintendent, and a superintendent. So he brings just a wealth of knowledge to the job. And he is also the right person, I think, to manage us out of this situation.
Some of these follow-up questions are yours, moving right along to cover as many as we can in the time that the mayor and I have. I was appalled when the Supreme Court said that I think it was the Supreme Court, that the city of Washington, D.C. did not have a right to decide its own gun laws. And it continue with its ban of handguns. More appalled than to read last week in the Washington Post that now with this concealed weapon weapon permits available in Washington, D.C., that 800 people have applied for concealed carry permits. Is this something you support? And if not, what can we do about it?
No, I don't support it. And I got in trouble early on when I was in office. I went to talk to a group. I was in a church. And so I guess I felt, I don't know what I felt, but I said something that inspired. I hate guns. I'm one of those people. I know it's not really a middle ground for me. I don't like to be around them. I wouldn't have them in my house. I don't kind of look funny at other people who have guns. I just hate guns. And not only for the violence that they create, but they are part of accidents and suicides, and so many negative things happen when we have guns. I swear to protect and preserve the Constitution. And of course, we have to protect people's constitutional rights. The court says people have a right to bear arms, that we have to protect it in our city. Now, after the Heller case, the Heller decision, we also, we attempted to change the law. I think at the time under Phil Mickelson wrote the legislation to make sure we could continue to manage in our city, just to properly regulate the space and training and permitting of guns. We think that we have faced challenges with that when it comes to concealed carry. So having said all of that, you know how I feel about guns. The concealed carry part doesn't worry me as much as the illegal guns on the street. So we can make people who are going to come and go through the process to get a permit are probably not the people who are committing crimes. Probably not. But the problem in our city for public safety are the illegal guns that are flooding in from states who have virtually no regulation, like Virginia and Maryland. And so that way we are seeing a lot of illegal guns very cheaply getting in the hands of would-be criminals who will use them.
Right. Are there places, even under the concealed carry, are there places in the district that are out of bounds?
Oh, there's a long list that are out of bounds. All of our district buildings are out of bounds. There are other, I think, federal government facilities. And any property owner can restrict the ability of guns to come on their property. So an office building, an apartment building could restrict it, retailers, restaurants, but you have to display it if you're going to do that. And there's a ring, I think, around we can limit around some large gatherings and the like.
One thing that, again, onto another topic, that surprised me. You are a progressive, and most progressives would say, we got to get the money out of politics. Well, the district city council has unanimously passed some very tough campaign finance measures to limit how much money people can get from campaign contributors, and also maybe go to a public financing of campaigns in the district.
Well, we already have limits on the amounts of money you can get from contributors.
But on the terms of public financing,
yes, I don't.
You're opposed to it.
I am
Why?
I don't. It is just something. It's not getting money out of politics. It's just putting your money into it. And I want to decide personally, which candidates I'm going to support. And I don't really very much want the government to say, well, you do this very minimal amount and then you can get precious taxpayer dollars. And then as a person who makes the budget, it makes me very uncomfortable to say that I would take $3 million out of the Treasury and hand it over to a candidate, when I could be putting that $3 million towards, and that's just one candidate that runs for mayor, $3 million out of the Treasury, hand it over to the candidate. What if you have 3 or 4 people that qualify? $12 million out of the Treasury, hand it over to the candidate. That's not something that I'm comfortable with. What I have been very comfortable with over the years. And as a member of the council, dealing with the ethics issues that we know to be problematic. I authored the legislation that created the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability. I strengthened the Office of Campaign Finance for the first time in many years, gave them an additional $1 million so they can have more investigators, more auditors, and better technology to make clear to every resident and every voter how people are contributing to campaigns.
Right. Do you support the ability of businesses, corporations to make campaign contributions to city candidates?
I do. I support them being able to make contributions to whoever they want. And over the course of time, now keep in mind in DC that there are limits. So any business can, for a ward candidate, can give up to $500 per race. And I think the at-large races go from 1,000 to 1,500 to 2,000 in the case of the mayor's race.
How about companies that have contracts or bidding for contracts with the city? Isn't there an obvious conflict if they're in front of you or the city council to do a building or whatever project, and they're handing out campaign cash to candidates?
Well, I don't see it that way, because I see it that people want businesses, people who have businesses, people who live here and pay taxes, want to be a part of the political process and influence who leads the city. And I don't see it any other way. Now, I will tell you, I have done some things differently in the campaign that I'm running now. This will be my 6th election. And we kind of listened to what people had to say about corporations giving, and we have focused more on individual giving and more on businesses that don't have business in the District of Columbia. So a candidate will always be able, whatever the rules are, and whatever the rules that we decide we will have moving forward in the district, they change about every cycle, then I will follow and we will support.
And throughout your work, one thing I think those of us who live in the district realize that there are limits built into your ability to get things done and the city councils, because we do not have home rule in the District of Columbia. We are still treated as a colony by the federal government. How difficult is it to work under those rules, and how much freedom do you feel that you really have?
I feel like we have home rule, limited such that it is. What we need is statehood, because what we lack in the everyday operations of our city are not affected by the Congress. The things that affect us is when you have a Congress that votes on a tax bill in the record time and you don't have a vote. That affects us because they are making very real decisions about how the revenues we collect in our city and how we can operate our city. The Congress and the president have some influence over a lot of federal land in the city. So that's another impact that we have with them. And if we get a congressman who wants to make a name for himself, who is in our oversight committee, then that can have, it's mostly a rhetorical, political kind of nuisance, but it causes anxiety and it causes additional work for us to beat it back.
Have you had any conversation with Donald Trump about statehood for the district?
I have, yes.
And?
My impression and for those who don't know, I've had 2 one-on-one meetings with the president. My first one was at Trump Tower during the transition. And this was soon after the election, where many of us were completely crestfallen and trying to pull ourselves together and figure out what we're going to do. And I was definitely one of those people, but I knew it was very important that we got in front of the president, let him know who we were as a city and who are not as a city, because many people believe that we are an agency of the federal government, that we rely completely on the federal government, or they think that nobody really lives here in Washington, D.C., that everybody leaves. And so, I'm only exaggerating a little bit because there are places when you go, they don't have the proper impression of the district. So I didn't want to take for granted that the president-elect knew who we were. So we went up there, we talked to him. And keep in mind that his view, his best view and most recent view of Washington, D.C. was really because he was traveling the city looking for real estate opportunities, and he found one. So that is, in that conversation, we talked about a lot of things, but statehood was one of those things. And so what I'll say is at that time, I believed that he didn't really have an impression about it, and that we had the opportunity to give him our impression before the Republicans on the Hill gave him theirs. And so that was kind of the genesis of our conversation.
And nothing since then. Okay, so I want to do a quick lightning round before we open it up to all the rest of you with just a few issues that just quickly touch on. Metro, how's it going? How's it doing? Is it safe? And
it's better. It's better than it was, I would say, 2 years ago. And
is the money going to be there to really?
I believe so. I'm more optimistic about it. The district will live up to our commitment of 125 until 150 extra $1 million. So we're doing some pretty heavy discussion on how we're going to raise that. And I think that the Virginia and Maryland legislatures are better situated this year than they were last year.
One of the greatest improvements to the city, I think, that any of us have seen is the wharf.
Thank you.
It's incredible, incredible. Second phase, second part of the wharf, on track, on budget. I mean, on schedule, and
I believe so. They're just getting underway, and so I think I can say yes, that they're on a path to get things done. Many people know that that's been a project long in the making. We have Congresswoman Norton to thank for a lot in securing that land. And at the wharf, they have actually done something that I didn't think was possible. I tell people all the time, we're not going to make any new land in DC. So we have to work with the land that we have. But we actually got more land at the wharf. They built these piers out into the river and really reclaimed space. And people are using that space. There's entertainment and there are piers out there where folks can use. So we actually added some space down at the wharf. And what we should all be very proud of is with those hundreds of millions of dollars of investment, about 0.25% of the housing there is below market rate housing, affordable housing. So we should be proud of the district stepping up. And one of the biggest tips, sometimes we get criticized for economic development tools that we use. In this case, it was a TIF, tax increment financing, but that helped support the affordable housing units that are there.
come up the river just a little bit. Soccer stadium?
Yes.
When?
It will deliver at the end of the summer, and DC United will play this year.
This year?
This year.
Right. This is winter. We haven't had a lot of snow, but God, we have a lot of salt.
Yeah.
Why does the city, this may not be the biggest issue, throw so much salt around before the first snowflake hits? Could you just take that back to your people?
Is that a serious question? Okay. It is. Okay. I'll answer that. Good.
It is.
Because I'd rather you complain about the salt than the snow and the ice. Trust me, you would rather complain about the salt than the snow and the ice.
Okay. All right.
But I take that to heart because it's not free. You know, we pay for that.
Yeah.
We have to stockpile it. And sometimes in some years, there's shortages of salt. So we don't throw it around willy-nilly. We do look at the forecast and try to make the best decision possible. Now, people and folks in Montgomery County put out something recently because they caught a lot of hell. They caught a lot of hell the last time it didn't snow, and they thought it was going to snow, and they closed school. I catch it all the time around school closing. But they describe the weather patterns because they have more snow days now than they have in past years. And I think somebody asked them, well, has the weather changed? And they came back and said, no, the weather hasn't changed. The people have changed. And the tolerance for drive. People want to see blacktop before they can drive, even if it's just a smattering of snow, or that every sidewalk has to be clear before the kids can go to school. I have a different view. And so I really think as a city, and I'm born and raised here, and that we have earned our reputation as snow wusses, and we have to change that. And part of my charge to my team is that we have to get open as a city when it snows. If it's a little bit of snow or if it's a big snow, our plan should be, how can we get Metro so that they can open? How can our bus stops be available so people can ride the bus? How can our essential bus routes get moving? How can we have access to our hospitals, our schools, and our government buildings? If we can do all of those things, we can open as a city, and we can open on time. So that's how we approach every storm. How quickly can we get open?
All right, save to last, the number one issue maybe on the minds of people who live on the Hill, particularly in the Eastern Market area, rats.
Yeah.
It is a problem all over the city, particularly here. What's the city doing about it?
And I thought too that, I asked somebody who goes all around the city and treats people's homes and backyards and everything. And I asked them, what's the worst area? And I'm not going to say which one, so don't ask me. But I asked them what was the worst place. And I thought sure he was going to say Capitol Hill for, all the calls and the calls for service. And he said, no, not at all. But then, where I live. Is that
supposed to make us feel better?
No, I'm gonna get to it. And I live close to the former Walter Reed off of 16th Street. And then he looks at me, he says, no, Capitol Hill's not the worst, it's this other neighborhood is the worst. And then he looks at me and he says, well, wait till they tear down that hospital at Walter Reed.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're going to really see some
Yeah,
rats.
yeah.
So let me kind of go back to what we're doing. Actually, our team just had our second rat stat, which is everybody laughs when I say that, but we use a kind of performance review system called CapStat. And we've recently started a series where we're just focused on rats. So we have a number of items that we're going to work on that are technology based. Some very simple technology like dry ice. We were in Capitol Hill recently where family can use dry ice to help if they see burrows in their own yard. We're doing some more things kind of technology based to help us predict where we might have a problem instead of react to calls for service, so we know how to get out. We have a partnership now with the National Park Service, a federal partnership, because a lot of their spaces they were doing nothing with. I don't know what the situation here is at Lincoln Park, but at DuPont Circle, huge issue, right? So take it over DuPont Circle. So now we, instead of they, are treating it. So those are some things that we're doing, but the trash is the really big thing for rats. How we are working with our business owners, our multi-family units, and all of our property owners to better manage trash. And we will have some more ideas. We put out a program last year about compacting, and where we supported some subsidies to help business owners buy compactors. There's a number of businesses in Ward 6 on Barracks Row who have piloted ways to store trash inside. And so that is kind of a growing thing that some businesses who have the space are taking advantage of. So we're really focused on how to better manage trash, especially food waste.
Yeah. Mayor, thanks so much for your time this evening. Thanks so much for being here. And of course, we just skimmed across the surface. Microphone here, which I think we just have one microphone this evening. We have two. Okay.
Yes, we can do this lapel microphone.
All
a little
right.
bit different tonight,
Got it.
but we'll still hand it off.
So where do we start? Let's start over here, and then we'll move over here. We'll just go back and forth, huh?
Okay.
Mayor?
Thank you.
It doesn't have to be too close.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You spoke a lot
Councilwoman.
of things that your administration has done. And picking up on rats, which is an environmental issue, the city has gotten a lot of recognition for its leadership in energy and its sustainability. And I wonder if you'd say some things about that and what you see going forward in the future.
Well, we have gotten a worldwide recognition. We were in fact named the first LEED Platinum city in the world, and that was largely a recognition of things that we've done in our building industries for sustainable practices that we've required, including green roofs, including solar. The city itself has really undertaken a lot of green energy practices on our own buildings, including huge solar investments and a wind deal that over the course of 20 years is going to allow us to power, I think, about 25% of our public buildings. We've also been very concerned about making sure that people of all incomes can take advantage of energy efficient items and solar. So we've been very focused on that. Our commitment to trees is really outstanding. And many years ago, the Casey Foundation made a huge investment in the city. And I learned a story about that recently. It was the Casey's that wanted to help with another mayoral residence. And when that fell through, they instead invested in trees in Washington, D.C. So there's a lot of things that we are doing. I would say another big push that we are seeing dividends on is the investment in our rivers. The Potomac and the Anacostia are coming back. They will be swimmable and fishable, certainly in my lifetime, and hopefully really, really soon, sooner than that. We're celebrating the year of the Anacostia. A couple of weeks ago, I was at Kingman Island, where we declared part of Kingman Island a preserve. And made an investment to create an educational facility there as well. So there are a lot of things, and Washingtonians are very concerned about it. Very concerned about doing our part. We recently started accepting more recyclables, which people were very excited about as well. And the DPW director has a vision that he brought to me, and I think that if we get 4 more years, we'll be able to do that too, and that is to accept food waste at the curbside. And that will reduce significantly what we're taking to the landfill, and it will help us produce the composting materials that can be used for other things. So that's something that we're looking forward to.
Just a footnote on that, personal footnote. A couple of years ago, Carol and I put solar panels on our house on Capitol Hill. And we were told at the time that Washington, D.C. Was the best city in the country in terms of tax benefits for putting solar panels, because the support that the city gives in addition to the federal support at the time, that this was the best city in the country for installing solar panels on a residential roof. So, yeah,
well, let's
bravo.
thank Commissioner Betty Ann Kane for her service to the Public Service Commission and helping guide our energy future. Thank you, Betty Ann.
Yeah.
Hi, Mayor Bowser. Thanks for coming to our neighborhood. My name's Claire. I live right down the street. I'm wondering, since you started off talking about Amazon, I know there is kind of an expectation that some jobs will be filled by DC residents, and that at the same time we're creating a lot of housing to accommodate an influx of people. So I'm wondering what some of the challenges are going to be besides housing, and what you're doing to ensure that many of those jobs are going to be filled by DC residents.
Well, we're very preliminary in that discussion, so it's not a lot that I can say about that, except I will say that part of our pitch was to work with the surrounding universities to have a very specific pipeline of training for the types of jobs that Amazon would create. We dubbed it Amazon University. But what it would really be is looking at all of our higher ed institutions and putting together a curriculum that would work for our residents to be prepared for those jobs.
Back with this thing. Right up front here, Eli, if you can. Here we go. Coming here. Yep.
Thanks, Mayor. appreciate you being here so much. But an important issue. What are you planning to do about the graduation scandal, which we now learn has gone on for years and decades? And that was just a surprise with Baloo. How are you going to change this?
Well, we are, first of all, we're going to make sure that all the policies are clear and followed at every school. That's number one. And number two, we have to, and this is not a simple answer, we have to, the problem is not just that we didn't track all of the attendances and it weren't reported. That's not the problem. The problem is, why do you have so many kids that don't come to school? So that is what, and all the things that I mentioned earlier are how do we drive more kids and families to be sitting there every day? Because all of the investments we made are for naught if a kid is not sitting in the seat. And so that's what we're talking about. Now, let me step back and say this. It is not acceptable, because I think this is kind of the underlying concern, is how is it that teachers, administrators, all the way up to the principal kind of turned the blind eye. And so that is what we have to get under. Now, some have suggested that they have too much pressure to have a student succeed. And that's what we really have to figure out and get at the heart of. Why do we have some kids entering the 12th grade, and probably in day one of the 12th grade, their chances of graduating are slim. And so we need to deal with that even before they enter the 12th grade. So let me say another thing that is become pretty common in secondary education, and that is the opportunity for a kid to make up work that they failed. And we will continue to support that, but they have to have a robust system, which was lacking. And we are all familiar with kids being able to make up courses they failed, because we call it summer school. And so it's really summer school that was offered and should be offered and could be offered during the school year under the right conditions. So that's what we're working on. I could tell you a whole long list of very specific things. Yes,
Who's
sir.
going to be fired?
There have been several people already who have.
Who are they?
We had 2 people at one of the schools, another person at another one of the schools, and a person in the central office who remained. And I will say, the person in charge of high schools over secondary education. We had some people who are no longer at DC Public Schools prior to all of this breaking, that if they had been at DC Public Schools still, they probably would have been fired too.
Okay, over here, or wherever we are. Yeah, sure.
Thanks to the both of you for coming out. My name is Julian Weichel, and I'm a real estate agent. I deal with the DCRA quite a bit. What are your thoughts on improving the processes there and the bill about splitting it into the 2 different agencies?
What processes are you talking about?
The permitting, licensing. So, I mean, a lot on the real estate side I deal with, but in terms of business licensing, but permitting for building permits and projects around the neighborhood.
I frequently ask people what their interaction is with DCRA, because one thing DCRA has suffered from is a kind of a bad reputation over the years. And so sometimes people haven't even dealt with DCRA in years, and they say it's bad. And I'll say, well, what have you done with DCRA? And they say, well, not me. So what I encourage everybody to do is kind of know what issue, and tell me what issue it is that is problematic. The other issue that DCRA has is it's kind of always going to be an agency where people are, they're put off by, because you know what DCRA does? It tells you to wait. It charges you, it makes you wait, and then it may tell you that you're doing it wrong and you've got to do it this way. So there's always a little bit of a friction between a business owner, a property developer, and DCRA. So having said that, I think that I've also challenged the team. It was last summer now, I think, that I spent a whole week just at the agency, because I was an ANC commissioner. So I hear when constituents are telling me that something is wrong. And what I realized, and just in that week there, is that just kind of what I said about Montgomery County, that people have changed, expectations have changed, our customer has changed, but our business practices at DCRA had not. And so we had to figure out how to better communicate with the customer, the design professionals that work for them and the like, the changing building environment in our city, because now we have green building requirements. We have a lot of permit requests because there's a lot of construction going on and the like. So while I haven't spent a lot of time with the new proposal, I don't ever think it's a good idea to try to fix something in a bureaucracy by doubling it. And so if where there are problems, let's figure out how to address those problems. And I don't think you do that by doubling it. Because can you imagine, not only would you be telling me you had a DCRA problem, you would telling me you have a DCRA 2 problem. And then now I'm trying to figure out who's responsible for your problem. So I really hope that the council will take a pause on that and let's figure out where we have problems and invest in those specific problems, not creating a new director, 2 new assistant directors, a new general counsel, a new HR person, a new front desk person, a new this, and none of that has to do with getting you your permit. So that's where I think we need to focus.
I see the microphone there. There's a question up front. Do you have to? Yeah. Over here. Yeah.
Thank you. Mayor Bowser, I want to go back to what Duncan was asking about education,
Yeah.
because many of us are really horrified by what's going on. I taught very briefly at Eastern High School. It was an interim thing. I taught journalism. The students had no computers. They had no pencils or paper. They were supposed to bring their own pencils and paper in. There was a computer lab that they'd gotten through a grant
When was that?
2 years ago
Okay.
that was bolted, locked shut because one student had stolen a computer. So it was I offered to start a newspaper to help them. It was so disheartening. And these kids were in the 10th and 11th grade and could hardly write a simple sentence. And I just don't understand how they got that far. And I think it's great that we're going to find out why they're not going to school. But even when they're in school, I had kids who came every day. They mostly put their heads down and slept on the desks. But and this is a school that was just redone. It's a beautiful new facility, and it's a mess. So it seems like an insoluble problem. It's so systemic.
I don't agree with you about that. And what I try not to do is use anecdotes to a broad stroke over an entire school system. So I appreciate that was your experience, and it shouldn't happen in any classroom. But I don't think that we can just, brush that across the system.
Right over here. Yeah.
Mayor, thank you for coming to our wonderful Hill Center, which is probably one of the best examples there is of partnership between a neighborhood and the city. So, and we want to keep that going. My question is RFK and the surrounding area.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen?
Well, we have a proposal. Part of our discussion with the feds and the Park Service is to get control of RFK. We have control of it now through a long-term lease. I think we have another 10, no, we have longer than that. I think we have about 20 years left on the lease. We want to get control over it sooner rather than later so that we can make investments in it. The stadium will be vacant. We will no longer have a sports use there towards the end of this year. So the city wants that to come into our portfolio so that we can help make investments in it. It is controlled by Events DC, which is our convention center authority. They've been managing RFK and all the surrounding area for a number of years, and they've been doing a very good job. Right now, it's been like 2 years, I guess, they have been running a design discussion about what could happen at RFK once the soccer team is gone. So those proposals include a number of sports and entertainment uses because that is all that it can be used for under the current lease. That's the plan. So I expect Congresswoman Norton introduced a bill. It has gone through, I think, the committee in the House. I think it also got a vote out of the House, and now it's been introduced in the Senate. That would extend our lease so that we get a new 99-year extension. Our hope is still to have the covenant limiting it to only sports and entertainment uses be also eliminated. What I think is it can just be a wonderful mixed-use opportunity there, not just sports and entertainment. We have advanced one of the projects related to it, which is delivering new soccer fields. And I think they will be able to start that in the spring, I think 4 or 6. A lot of the community interest has been how can the community use the facility more. And so we will be able to add some soccer fields temporarily until it's finally developed.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question?
Okay.
Stadium goes.
The stadium could go. It could also come back. So the plans that are on the table include NFL-sized stadium or not. And so there are a few iterations that the community has commented on over the last several years. That we don't have an immediate plan to demolish the stadium. And so we'll work with Events DC to see if it's still any like high school uses it could be used for. It's in really bad shape. It's not really, it's not good for much right now. And so we would come back and talk about a demolition. Probably we would want to have a new plan before we went into the demolition because it could be a costly demolition.
Mm-hmm. Okay. A couple of questions here. Yes.
First of all, I want to thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm Ellen McGill and I live in Ward 3. But I want to comment on the excellent service that the DC school system is doing for the international program. I worked with the Rotary Club and it was such an honor to find my colleague come into the office and excited about the grandkids that have been accepted into this program that you have going to France and Italy for the summer. And that's phenomenal because a lot of the DC students really doesn't even have an opportunity, didn't even know one part of town from the other part. So I just want to say thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you. And so the program you're referring to is for middle schools. And part of what we were just talking about is how to keep kids engaged in school and make school exciting and different and fun. And having these types of experiences is one aspect of doing that.
Over right here, and then we'll come back. Yeah.
That was my other half. You mentioned tearing down the Walter Reed Hospital.
Yes.
What is that area going to become, and aren't some of those buildings historical buildings?
Yes, the Walter Reed campus has about 20 historic buildings, and they're all going to be repurposed. The hospital is not one of them. There are actually 2 hospitals on the site. The original hospital, which is historic, which you can't really see from the street, and that old, well, that's not even that old, but it's not good. It's not a good looking structure, in my opinion, and it will come down. So there is a plan. It's about 60 acres there that the district controls. The State Department controls the other half of Walter Reed, and there will be embassy uses there. But the plan on the part that we own is for mixed use kind of town center development. So there will be housing, there will be an employment site, a retail site. We also have a school there that opened last year. So school is operating on the Walter Reed campus right now. It will, over the course of probably 10 years, develop fully. Similar to Walter Reed, the RFK site is a similar site. It's big enough that a plan will be developed that over the course of several years, probably 10 years, it will develop.
So we have time for a couple more questions here. Yes, if we
Hi.
can, Mayor. Is that
Yes.
Thanks so much. By the way, this is my first of your events I've come to, and this is great. I will be back. My question to you
Welcome.
actually is, you mentioned we're approaching budget season, and I'm wanting to know, are you planning to include funding for all parts of the NEAR Act at or above levels that we currently are funding? And where it kind of falls in the list of priority for funding for the next year?
It's already funded and started.
For the coming
I'm
year,
sorry,
though.
I don't know what program you're
Sure,
talking
so
about. Maybe not
you
everyone
wanna
does.
explain?
Sure. So the NEAR Act is a Neighborhood Engagement Achieves Results Act. It was passed 2 years ago by the council unanimously, and it seeks to redefine the way we're approaching safety as a community, and has a comprehensive set of approaches to looking to reduce community violence through interrupting violence and preventing it when we can. And there's also looking at data, using data to be able to understand how we, what crime really looks like. And also there's a whole series of things, but also data from police stops, et cetera, as well. And so, but it's looking for a non-police solution often in order to reduce mass incarceration and things like that. So it was a hard-fought community priority, and I'm just wanting to know for the coming year, I know it is currently funded, and thank you for that, but in the coming year, given that it's out of public health department and a bunch of different sort of parts of the budget, are you planning to fund it at the levels that we funded it in the past year, and just as a priority for your administration?
So let me just kind of step back and let you know what we have already done. We opened what we call the Safer Stronger Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. It's in Ward 7, and we use the old police station. So I would actually say that the vision that was kind of in the NEAR Act has been greatly expanded, and I couldn't be happier with that. So with that, we've combined a few other of our kind of initiatives, including an office that we call for community stabilization, where there is violence, they respond to the community. We're also going to have located there one of our DHS, or Human Services services, where kids are diverted from criminal justice system, and now they can come to ACE and PASS right in that facility. We will have the opportunity for our DBH professionals to drop in as well, which is part of what we're doing around the NEAR Act. We hired a fantastic executive director who has a lot, 20 years of experience in gang intervention. So we're really proud of the work that has happened there. His focus now, his name is Del McFadden, is how we recently just signed an agreement with the UIRS as well to expand its credible messenger program into the NEAR Act office, and now how we're going to fund some of our local agencies to help with that violence disruption. So we're very much on track, and it's basically become its own little small agency. So it will be funded.
Mm-hmm. Good. I think we have a question here that we'll wrap up with, right? Please.
Welcome, Mayor. I live a few blocks from here. My question is, with all of the growth that's going on in the city and the tax revenues and other revenues that are flowing in, my concern is whether or not our dollars are used efficiently and what we're doing to examine that. I mean, my experience with the city, I've been here for more than 20 years, is services are much better, the quality of service. So it doesn't come from a question of dissatisfaction. It's just when I hear the really such sad tales about what's going on in the schools and maybe the need to reach back even in late elementary to figure out these things. There's so many things we still could be doing. So I want to make sure that we've stopped doing the things that we don't need to do, and that we're, as a city, looking at things so that we can continue to keep the momentum we have going forward.
And that's a very fair question, and we do all of those things. And I focus a lot on kind of the mechanics and the operations. We just got our latest audit and we've had 21 clean audits. But in the last 3 years, we've also had where the auditors found no material weaknesses in how our financial systems are working. So that's a good thing. To the earlier conversation that we had, just to tell you how we look to streamline. Every year when we build the budget, we go through and ask all of the agency directors to cut 5%. And some of those cuts stick, some that we have to restore. And we've also been judicious in how we have grown the budget in my tenure. Even though we've grown a lot of people, we haven't also let the operations side of our budget get out of whack, because those things are important for how bonding agencies look at us, how much it costs for us to borrow money to do all of the capital projects that we want to do. It's important that we run efficiently. And so I will say we get all good marks from that. But could we be doing things better? So just one example, DCPS, and since we've been talking about that, I asked the chancellor to go through and look at our whole central office staff. We definitely found a lot of failures in how those policies were rolled out and executed. So really, this is a good time now, after having the same kind of regime for a long time, under the fresh set of eyes, looking at what we're doing in the central office. And I think that we're going to be able to find savings there and make sure that those monies are being invested in schools, in the schools themselves.
So, Mayor, for those of us, all of us who believe in democracy, who believe in community and are committed to doing our share, what a rare opportunity to have a great old-fashioned town hall meeting with one of our leaders to throw any questions that we can at you. And we thank you so much for honoring us by coming to the Hill Center. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for your great questions. And thank all of you.
Thank you.